welcome back to my channel. My name's Crystal, and if you're new here, I make vlogs about anything that's going on in my life at the moment. So if you didn't already see my two previous videos, I'm kind of going through my daughter's NICU stay, how she landed in the ER, which was because of meningitis, which is what she contracted. The reason that I'm making this video is because when we found out she had meningitis, we started searching online for other families that had already gone through this, and we didn't find anybody. And so it would have been really beneficial to have someone kind of be there for us that knew what we were going through. It's kind of why we decided to create these videos. So there's a part 1 and part 2 to it, and I'll link that down below if you have not already seen that. And so this is kind of the next portion to her journey with going through the ER and finding out what she had, and her stay in the NICU. And I have photos and videos that I'll be inserting. This point is where we left off. Was she was admitted to the NICU, where she was there overnight, and we went home and we got sleep for the first time in days. I had slept in about 4 days, and at this point she's 4 days old. And so we went home, we came back the next morning. It's February 13th, and this is day 1 of her being in the NICU. So we come in and she has all of these probes all over her head because overnight the nurse practitioner said that they saw seizure activity. So she was having the same movements that we saw whenever she was having a seizure at home. We just didn't know that they were seizures at the time. And so her arm was like straight up into the air again and just kind of stiff and kind of looking in one direction. So they knew that that was her seizure activity. So because of that, they ordered an EEG where they had someone come out and they put these little like wires and stuff all over her head. And they measured to see if she had any abnormal behavior, which means seizure activity from her brain, for about an hour. It was honestly really hard to walk in and see her like that, because you're not used to seeing your baby attached and hooked up to so many different machines and wires. And if you've ever had a baby in the NICU or PICU, you know that whenever they're strapped to those monitors, there's this constant like beeping because it's measuring her heart rate and her oxygen levels, which is obviously so needed and monitor your child. But it's the scariest thing ever to see them hooked up to so much and to feel so helpless too. So I must say day 1 was obviously really hard. We ended up getting the results back from the EEG, and they came back abnormal. And so the children's that we went to, they don't have the manpower to watch our brain reacts to the seizure activity in a 24-hour period, which is what they wanted to monitor. Because once she did have seizure activity, and they put her on phenobarbital, and they wanted to see if it was enough, if it was gonna be able to stop her from having those seizures. They transferred us to a different location. They had people that are able to watch her 24/7, make sure that the phenobarbital is doing what it needs to do. That day, even though it was such a crazy mess because we had only slept for like 3 hours and we had just come to the realization that our daughter is in the NICU, now we're being transferred down to a different hospital. So it's just, you never get the chance to like breathe and really even process what's going on at the moment. You're just kind of like, okay, you take the information that you have. Okay, she's having seizures. Now she's on seizure medication. Now we need to figure out how she reacts to the seizure medication, if it's even working. So you're just kind of like marking, it's almost like checking boxes, like, okay, did that, now let's go on to this and let's figure out this. So it's kind of crazy, and I'm really glad, so thankful for the Texas Children's Hospital at the location that we were from the beginning, because they had people come in and talk to us and just kind of preface us for going down to the med center. Crazy. It's a whole nother ballpark from the hospital that's by us, saying, hey, just letting you know, it's going to be a different vibe. It's going to be so different, and it's going to be overwhelming. We're like, okay. So thankfully they let us know. And she was being transported by ambulance from this TCH to the TCH in the med center. So at that point we knew that she had meningitis because we found out from the night before from the nurse practitioner, but we didn't know what kind at the moment. So we knew that her spinal fluid was the GBS strand, but we also found out that it was also in her blood, but we didn't know what strand it was yet. So they had her on like a general antibiotic, but most commonly whatever's in your spinal fluid is common to be the same as what's in your blood, but that's not always the case. So of course they want to just treat a broad range. So our pod was D75, And honestly, I'll never forget that. It was so overwhelming. It's just so packed, and it's like a madhouse, and it's so busy. And there's so many monitors around because there's so many babies in the NICU. We make it down there, and that's when we found out her blood did come back to be also GBS. So that's whenever they immediately went from the broad spectrum antibiotic to penicillin. So we were told that night that she was going to be on watch for at least 24 hours. We were approved to stay at the Ronald McDonald House. If you don't know what that is, it's like housing on the same floor as the NICU was for us anyways. We were on the 4th floor. It's completely like you don't have to pay for it, but the rooms do book up obviously because parents want to be with their babies all the time. So it's almost like we went and toured it, and it was almost like dorms, and everyone's so amazing there, and we were lucky enough to get a room. Like I said, it's almost like dorm rooms. You walk down this hallway, there's just like a bunch of rooms, and they open the door, and it's like a bed. There's no windows or anything, and there's a bathroom. And walk through the bathroom, and obviously we're still in a hospital, right? And so it's like a hospital bathroom. And we walk out, and my husband's like, yeah, great, like, thank you so much, like, this is gonna be so helpful, this is gonna be so amazing that, like, we're literally down the hallway from our daughter, we can come see her at any moment. And we're like, and we thanked them, and they were amazing, and so nice. I walk down the hallway, and I literally just started bawling. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the bathroom reminded me of like my labor delivery hospital where I had her, and it was, I don't know, it was just like a flashback of that bathroom, and it made me overwhelmed with emotions, and I felt claustrophobic, and it was just anxiety, a lot of anxiety. And the fact that it didn't have windows, which sounds so crazy, but like it didn't have windows, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to get fresh air from that room. I don't know, it really freaked me out. And I told my husband, I'm like, I know that we are so lucky to have the opportunities to stay in this room, but I can't do it. I was just bawling in the hallway. Luckily, my brother lives fairly close by, and my brother and my sister-in-law offered, so nice of them to offer for us to stay there, and we can just come and go as we pleased. And it was about like a 15 or 20 minute drive from the hospital to their house. So I told my husband, I'm like, I know that we're down the hallway from our daughter, and I don't want to sound like a bad mom, but I literally can't be here. I can't be here 24/7. I cannot be in this room. I can't be in this bathroom. It sounds so silly, but like I just couldn't, I can't. I need a mental break. I can't do this. And my husband, being super amazing man that he is, he was like, no, that's fine. Not a big deal. We'll text your brother and we'll just go there. I'm like, thank you. I was like, I would love to be back as early as possible in the morning, but I just can't be here overnight. Like, I just couldn't do it. Please don't judge me on that, guys. It was too much on my brain. Stayed at my brother's, and that's basically where we stayed the entire time that we were at this med center, TCH. So day 2, February 14th, was really hard because it was her first Valentine's Day, and I had planned for her to wear this onesie that said, like, it was like Daddy's Valentine or something like that. And I had all these ideas of what I wanted to do if she was born before Valentine's Day. And it made me so sad that she was going to spend her first Valentine's Day in the ICU. Yeah, we felt like it was just so unfair. Day 2, February 14th, her first Valentine's Day. Some good news was she was breathing on her own, and she wasn't on a ventilator, which is what they assumed that she would be on, and she didn't have any tubes that went up her nose for oxygen. She did have them when she was at the other location, just to assist with oxygen in case she needed it, but she didn't actually need it, so they had her off of the oxygen tubes. She was on the phenobarbital for seizures, and she was drowsy. Pheno does make you really drowsy, but it was an amazing day, even though it was Valentine's Day and we were really sad, but she yawned for the first time. And I know that sounds so crazy because at this point she's about 6 days old, but we had never seen her be a real baby because she had been so sick. Also tell us in the last 24 hours that there were no seizures detected, yay, which is awesome. But she was going to be hooked up to the EEG machine for at least another 2 or 3 days just to watch and monitor any seizure activity. They also told us at this point now she's going to be on a 21-day treatment plan of being on the antibiotic, which is penicillin. They also told us that same day that she'll be getting my milk via feeding tube, which went through her nose and into her stomach, which is called an NG tube. So it was really exciting that she was gonna have a full belly for the first time. We were really amped about that. And that day was awesome because Anthony, my husband, read her every single book that you guys got us. So for her baby shower, instead of cards, we had everyone bring a book and write a note on the inside. So if you guys got us a book and also wrote a note on the inside, she not only was able to hear us read the book to her, we also read the notes to her. So thank you guys so much for that because it really meant the world to us. And that's how she was spending her first Valentine's Day. But it was also an amazing day because we got to see her a little glimpse into what she was capable of. On day 3, February 15th, again, no seizures were detected. She was taking in my milk every 3 hours in her nose, which was really exciting to see. And we literally every single day we asked what her weight was the entire 22 days we were there. Told us on February 15th that we may be attempting to bottle feed her that day, and we were amped. Just to kind of preface what our day was like, we got there around 8 o'clock, 8 to 8:30-ish, because they made rounds at 9, 8:30 until basically 8:30. We were there for almost 12 hours every single day. We would go back to my brother's to have dinner, shower, and kind of just relax a little bit, and then we'd come back. Which, just a note real quick, thank you so much to my brother and my sister-in-law for being so amazing, for letting us stay with them, being so hospitable, cooking us food, buying us food for breakfast so we didn't have to think or worry about it or spend money on that. And they were making us dinners and just being absolutely wonderful. They have a son and a daughter. They were so fun to play with whenever we got back to the house. It just kind of got our mind off of Penelope's sickness for just a little bit. And I know that may sound bad to some of you, but you can't let it consume your entire day, even though it consumed ours for about 12 hours of it. We just needed a mental break where we just smiled, you know, and laughed. So still day 3, that day was really awesome because she was a little bit more alert and her eyes were open. Because as if you didn't know from the other videos, I talked about her first few days of life where she wasn't very alert and she was really sleepy the entire time and never really opened her eyes. Yes.
Hi, Penny. Hello. Say hi, I'm so alert today. Yeah. You hear Daddy's voice, huh?
Hi,
Yeah.
I want to go home too, baby.
Yeah, we're gonna take
Couple
you home.
more weeks.
So you're gonna be strong, right? Yeah. You're brave.
Doing a good job. Great job.
Good girl. Oh, sweet girl.
Exciting to see her alert. And I'll tell you also why on that too. So 6:12 p.m. I have the exact time because I texted my brother and my sister-in-law right when it happened. She had her first bottle. She took 2 ounces, which was really awesome. So this was so crazy to see a baby do these things because we hadn't known any different.
Penny baby.
She a good burper?
Yeah.
No, I mean, all that stuff. Well,
Yeah.
she probably is, but
It's so hard to tell because she was so sick.
all that stuff was just,
Yeah, everything was
nothing was.
not like she wasn't an
Look
infant.
at her. You're eating
This is
like
literally
a
the fastest
champ.
ever.
Yeah, she did not do this
At all.
the house.
Okay, that's good.
Not
Yeah,
at
this
all.
is
Good.
totally different.
Because once she gets like a few bottles in and we see she's doing okay, they'll probably let her breastfeed. And if you feel like she's empty, you know, we may just supplement with your
Sure.
milk, but
Yeah.
just supplement until, you know, she gets going.
It took us 30 minutes to feed
1
an
ounce.
ounce from the bottle.
Okay.
Day 4 is February 16th. They bottle fed her at 9 p.m. from the previous night. Had a tube feeder at the 3 a.m. feeding. 9 a.m. she had a bottle and she almost took the entire thing, which is exciting. No seizures being reported still. The nurse practitioner did say that if she ate well for 24 hours on the bottle strictly, then they would be able to take out the NG tube, which we were like, oh my gosh, like we need to make this happen. So they took a blood culture and it was negative for meningitis. Day 4 was a really good day. Day 5, February 17th, she got a PICC line. So instead of like your IV, it has to be changed out like every single day. If you're receiving anything for more than a week, then it's best to get a PICC line. And obviously for her, she needed to get a PICC line because she was gonna have treatment for 21 days. And that way it's something that is stuck in you the entire time. You don't have to change it out or anything. So basically it went through her arm. That's where her antibiotic is being shot into, and it goes right above her heart. That morning she got her PICC line. Also found out that the night before that she had taken her bottle completely, because the previous day she wouldn't take it for 3 of the feedings. So we're kind of nervous on what was happening there. But we think because the PICC line wore her out so much, being exhausted, plus she was on fentanyl. They also attempted a lumbar puncture that day. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. She was too squirmy. They were able to get in. They couldn't get any CSF fluid out, unfortunately. So that kind of stunk, and it was really sad for us because it's hard to hear your baby cry from another lumbar puncture, even though she had one just 4 days ago. On day 5, she had an MRI scheduled for that evening at 6 p.m. Came back the next morning, and so day 6, February 18th, was really hard. So we had kind of been going on this wavy upward trend of her progression. Day 6 hit really hard, really hard for us. We got the results back from her MRI, and that was a day that they told us that she had significant brain damage. And to hear those words come out of that nurse practitioner's mouth was so difficult. So many things go through your mind on what that meant. So we asked her and we said, well, how bad is the brain damage? And she said that it was moderate to severe, which then your mind kind of spirals. And you're immediately more scared than you were before, which you didn't think you could be. What does that mean for her? What is she going to be capable of doing? How moderate is this moderate to severe? Where is she on this scale? So many questions go through your brain, and my husband and I just start sobbing. So we asked what that meant, and she told us it meant cognitive delays, physical delays, hearing, and sight. And so we asked her what the severity was between 1 to 10, what her opinion of it was. And she said it was a 7. We stepped out of the NICU and cried so hard in that waiting room. Oh, I didn't even think I was gonna cry. Our hearts ached so much, not knowing what the future held for her. I literally looked at my husband and I said, I don't know how to keep going. How do you keep living knowing that your precious, sweet baby could be blind, could be deaf, may not ever be able to walk, live a normal life, be independent? have all these cognitive delays. All these emotions kind of rushed through the both of us. We had just never sobbed so hard ever in our entire lives until that very moment. Oh, I didn't even cry when I wrote this down. It's kind of like taking me back to that moment. So after we went through our feelings and our emotions at that moment, we asked to see the neurologist. We wanted to have a grasp on what was happening. They showed us images of her brain and the brain damage that she had endured from the meningitis. He did confirm everything basically that we had Googled and everything that we had heard from the nurse practitioner about, you know, how severe it was. And she wasn't the one that told us about them being blind or being deaf. That's honestly what we Googled, and that's what the guy from the neuro team ended up telling us anyway. So everything, literally, like I said, everything that we Googled was everything that he said. Then says, when we talk about the physical delay, he said, yeah, it could be anywhere. Obviously, it's moderate to severe. It's definitely not mild. And he brings up the words cerebral palsy, which is such a scary word to hear as a parent, especially to a newborn. And your mind automatically goes to like the worst of it, right? When you think of cerebral palsy, you think of not being able to function with holding on to things or grasping things or being able to walk, crawl, all those things. But what a lot of people don't realize, and what we also didn't realize, is that there's also like more of like a mild CP. And he told us, you know, this could be as little as tightening of the ankles when she's walking. Well, she'll need a break whenever she walks. Or obviously as more severe as being in a chair, like a wheelchair, and needing assistance with a lot of things. As he's going through all this, he also says other things like she may not be able to ever breathe on her own, and she may not ever open her eyes. She may not be able to eat on her own. And my husband and I kind of took all this stuff in and we're like, okay, so in our heads we're like, does that mean she's going to regress? We realized he hadn't assessed her in person yet. So he didn't know that she had already been taking a bottle for, you know, every other feed or 1 or 2 feeds, 3 feeds a day. He didn't know that she wasn't on a ventilator and she was actually breathing on her own and actually didn't need any oxygen tubes. And that we had seen her eyes open like 2 days before. Later finding this out, we're like, okay, so this makes sense. And so it kind of gave us like a little glimmer of hope, thinking, okay, so if she's already defying some of those odds, maybe she'll be able to defy others, while still kind of keeping a realistic thought process of, but he could be right on what could be happening. And of course, her eyes are open. Do we know if she can see? We don't, because at that age, they're not tracking yet. So day 7, February 19th, it was a very non-eventful day, which is a good thing. We got the okay that day to finish treatment on our side of town at the TCH closer to us. Before we were getting transferred, someone from the neuro team had come downstairs and they were like, hey, before you leave, can I just assess her quickly? And we're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. We're like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? And so she assesses her, and I guess she was like, well, you know, with all the swelling and everything happening for the meningitis in her brain, from all the damage and everything, she was saying that they assumed that the ventricles would have been very swollen, all the debris. And whenever she, I guess, physically checked her, she was like, they're not swollen. So she kind of looked at us kind of funny. She's like, so let me go talk to my team real fast, and I'll give you a call on whether you guys can have the go-ahead, because if, I guess, it was swollen, then she would need surgery to kind of remove that debris. And so we're like, oh my gosh, like what the heck is happening? Someone from the neuro team calls and talks to the nurse practitioner who was in our pod, and then she hangs up and we're like, okay, so what's going on? She was like, okay, no, you're free to go back to your home hospital. We're like, okay, well then what was all that about? They're like, well, when they were looking at her MRI and like how severe it was and how significant the brain damage was, and they are surprised that, I guess, her ventricles aren't swollen. We're like, okay, so I guess it's a good thing. And she's like, yeah. And she was like, and honestly, they were surprised that this is the same baby. We're like, what do you mean? She was like, because of how bad the MRI is, whenever they came, whoever it was that came down and looked at her, they were shocked that this was the same baby because she should look a lot more worse off. We're like, oh, interesting. Like, okay, well, that made us really happy, right? Because we're like, okay, she is continuing to defy odds. As the nurse practitioner, I wrote this down. She said people would be freaked out if they knew that this was the same baby as the MRI. Radiology did a spinal tap and it was successful. We did lumbar puncture, and we would get results in 24 hours whether or not the meningitis was still in her spinal fluid. And we were able to get transferred that evening to the hospital closer to home. And before I move on to the next couple days, just want to do a quick shout out to this nurse that we had in the med center. She was so incredible and she was so helpful to us. But we happened to get her more than once. We had her a couple of times actually. We're so comfortable with her. Whenever Penelope had her first bottle, she assisted us with that, and she was there to tell us Penelope wasn't doing that well initially in the bottle. She was like, it's okay, don't force her. We're gonna go at her pace on this. This made us feel so comfortable and so at ease with everything that was going on. She was there whenever we found out about the brain damage and how significant that damage was, and she was just amazing. And her name was Kelly, and I don't know if she's ever gonna see this video. If you do happen to know Kelly, she has short, dark hair. I know she has kids that play baseball. Please let her know that she is incredible and she literally was a godsend for us. February 20th, day 8. And don't worry guys, I'm not going to go into depth with every single day because at some point it does kind of get more non-eventful. She had been taking the bottle ever since she left the med center, and this is her first day back at our home hospital. A week prior, whenever she first had her spinal tap, they saw that her white blood cell count was about 3,400-ish, which is really, really, really high, which obviously means infection. And so whenever they tested her on day 7 at the med center, they saw that it was still high, but it was much, much better. So it went from like 3,400-ish to 140. What it should have been, a baby that young, your white blood cell count should be between 0 and 5. Told us during rounds that the MRI is showing worse than what they were seeing in person. So next MRI would be on day 19 of her treatment. Oh, and really exciting day. So this February 20th day, which is kind of crazy. So February 20th is actually the day that she was supposed to be born. That was also the same day that they took out her feeding tube. It was another huge milestone for us. 11:30 a.m. February 20th, she got her NG tube taken out, even though they expected that she may not be able to ever eat on her own. So day 9, February 21st. She had been having physical therapy, and there were no irregularities that she saw, except she has a clicking in her knee, but we don't know if that was from her being in my belly, because whenever she was in my belly, she was diagonal and she was kind of turned, so they don't know if that could have been the cause of it, but it doesn't cause her any pain. So, and she's finally over her birth weight. February 10th, February 22nd. Penny had her first, besides my brother and my sister-in-law that came in whenever we were in the med center, her first real visitor, and it was Jackson, her older brother. He's 12 years old. That was really exciting, and that was also when she was turned 2 weeks old. Attempted breastfeeding, and we had attempted whenever we were in the med center, but it was kind of a no-go. Didn't really work out very well. She took to the breast for the first time for a whole feeding. We did have a supplement afterwards, but it was really exciting that she latched. Day 11, February 23rd, breastfeeding again, and we supplemented. So someone slammed the door in the hallway from her room, and it was really loud, and she startled, which was, we were like, oh my gosh, yay, that's so great. She startled one other time. I was washing my pump pieces, and whenever I pulled off the paper towel, and she had just fallen asleep, and she startled, but we didn't know if it was a coincidence. In the hospital, whenever someone slammed that door and she startled again, we're like, oh my gosh, does that mean she can hear? February 24th.
Good morning. Good morning. Hi, baby. Hi. Good morning, sweetie. Hi, Penelope Rose.
Day 12 was uneventful. February 25th, day 13. She had PT that day and she was making big improvements. She was only looking to her right, only looking to her left, and she was not really ever looking to her right. And whenever they would like try to test to see how far she could go, she couldn't make a full turn. So we had been working on that, and she was finally able to look on both ways, which is really good. And day 13, we met with our OT telling us, you know, we should work on her tracking to kind of get her brain going with her vision. And So we were having her track her finger going back and forth, and she was kind of tracking it, kind of like losing interest, but we think she was, because it seemed like she was following her finger, which means she possibly has vision. So we had been working on tummy time to make sure that she can clear her airways if she's ever on her tummy and her head is face down. Day 15, February 27th, she breastfed for 3 feeds. She was finally more awake during the daytime. Day 17, February 29th. She is 3 weeks old. And she had her first blowout, which is, yeah, she had her first big poopy blowout. And that's basically day 19, kind of skipping ahead a little bit, March 2nd. They repeated the MRI, which of course neither of us slept that night. Day 20, March 3rd. MRI results said that the infection is gone. Kind of read what my husband wrote. We texted our family and friends about that. MRI results came back and the infection is completely gone. The basal ganglia part of the brain was damaged from the infection. So we're hoping, since the brain is so young and the surrounding tissues in the brain will be able to compensate, but only time will tell. We're on track to be discharged this week, and we'll have physical, occupational, and speech therapy moving forward. And she'll need to be on daily anti-seizure medication, which is the phenobarbital, for possibly a couple of years. And this is pretty similar to what the last MRI read, so we expected all of this to be the same and nothing to get worse. The good news was with those types of MRIs aren't eating on their own, aren't breathing without a ventilator. She was able to do all those things. Her infectious control disease doctor, her neurologist, her nurse practitioner, everybody, every doctor that we talked to said, you know, just letting you know, we know that, you know, the MRI says what it says. However, we treat the patient, not the MRI scan.
For one so small, you seem so strong.
Day 21, March 4th. Everything was usual. We had PT, and most babies do leave on the 21st day of their 21-day treatment. And the only reason we stayed for another day is because she had a hearing test.
Hi, Pumpkin. You see Mommy's phone? Can you look over this way? Hi. Hi. You going home today? Tickle. Is it tickle? Ready?
That was a really scary day. So it was the day that we were going to be able to go home, but we didn't know if we would go home a little bit bummed if the hearing test didn't go well. But she had a hearing test and she passed. For those that don't know, meningitis can still affect your hearing even after it's gone. That's kind of her story. Penelope's journey in the NICU, and like I said, the story is to spread awareness on meningitis, and this is kind of her journey on everything that she went through. And not only are we hoping that this helps out other parents that are going through something similar, but this is also a good way for us to kind of keep a video journal of everything that she's been through. And we'll hopefully be able to show her one day whenever she gets older and tell her how much of a warrior she was. And she's continued to kick butt. She's currently 15 weeks old now, which is just a little bit over 3 months. She's amazing, she's incredible. So I can't wait for the next few videos, because the next video will probably be her getting her first vaccination shots, which that was a doozy, because she had every after effect that's on the list after vaccination. So I'll explain that in the next video. And she also had her follow-up hearing test. And now, if you're not following me on social media, you probably don't know what's happening live. But I will get better at YouTube, I promise you guys. I just needed a break from that last video. So that's why it's taking me so long to make this one. Social media, you're not seeing everything live on when everything's happening. And if you're not, follow me on Instagram here down below. But once I catch every everybody up to speed on what's kind of happening. I want to continue doing weekly vlogs. I don't know what you guys think about that, and just let me know if that's something you'd like to see, but just kind of showing what's happening on a day-to-day basis and just making it into one short video with the baby recovering from meningitis. But yeah, she has physical therapy, occupational therapy, neurologist, she has infection control disease doctor, she has 2 pediatricians. I want to continue watching and following her on her journey and just kind of our family as a whole. Please hit the subscribe button if you liked the video. Give it a big ol' like. If you have any comments or questions, please be sure to comment them down below. But until next time, bye guys.